The story of the Necrons begins in a time long past, with a humanoid species called the Necrontyr, who would eventually become the Necrons. They began life in the far reaches of the galaxy, in the region of the halo stars. The Necrontyr existed long before mankind's evolution on Terra. This ancient race lived in incredibly harsh conditions, constantly bombarded by strong ionizing radiation from their nearby star. This environment had a drastic impact on their well-being. Their life was often short-lived. This would lead them to construct vast spelchers and tombs to contain much of their deceased populace. The Necrontyr civilization was governed by various dynasties, who themselves were ruled by a council called the Triarch. The High Lord of the Triarch was known as the Silent King. The title of the Silent King often passed between various dynasties due to the short life of their race, and was eventually passed on to Zarek, the last of the Silent Kings. Eventually, the Necrontyr were forced to venture out into the galaxy, using their stasis crypt and antimatter technology on board their living metal-armoured ships, searching for new worlds and leaving behind the lethal environment of their birth star. As the dynasties of the Necrontyr spread throughout the distant worlds, they would encounter a species far older than any other in existence in the known galaxy. These ancient beings were known as the Old Ones. The Old Ones were among the very first sentient beings to exist in the known galaxy. They possessed a deep wisdom and understanding of the workings of the universe, and were able to harness the powers of the warp, using their own psychic abilities to create a wide variety of advanced technology. They were able to weave their advanced arcane knowledge and technology into vast networks of warp gates, the large-scale precursor to the Aeldari webway, which they used as portals to connect other planets and traverse the galaxy. Their civilization reached its pinnacle over 60 million years ago, and they used their portal technology to seed and genetically nurture new life on distant worlds throughout this time. Thanks to their advanced warp gate technology, they had already colonized vast portions of the galaxy by the time the Necrontyr discovered their existence. Artisans of the immaterial realm, the Old Ones had gained knowledge incomprehensible to other races of the galaxy. They had learned the secrets of eternal life, but chose to retain this knowledge for themselves, refusing to bestow this gift upon the race of the Necrontyr, who still suffered from the effects of the radiation from their home star. The refusal to share this much-needed gift of immortality did not sit well with the Necrontyr. They were angered to learn that another intelligent species revelled in eternal life, while their own was cut so brutally short. As time passed, this anger would deepen and fester within their culture, and eventually the union of the dynasties shattered as they became engaged in devastating battles known as the Wars of Secession. The Silent King Zarek played a large role in successfully ending the conflicts between the dynasties of the Necrontyr Empire by the promise of immortality, and uniting them against a common enemy, the Old Ones. Lured by this promise too tempting to resist, the Necrontyr realms abandoned their wars of secession and united under the rule of the Triarch. As yet unknown by the Silent King, his plans would have dire consequences that would echo throughout history for countless years to come. In the terrible wars between the hated Old Ones and the Necrontyr that followed, it quickly became clear that the Necrontyr could not hope to win. The mastery of the warp gate portals possessed by the Old Ones consistently outmaneuvered the Necrontyr forces despite their powerful technology, pushing them back to their home planet. It was here the Necrontyr remained in exile, and were almost forgotten by the Old Ones over the millennia, as they were a force which had now been vanquished. During their long imprisonment on their home planet, the Necrontyr began to advance their weapons and technology, and seek new methods in which to avenge themselves. The aftermath of defeat left the Necrontyr with a swelling hatred, which would lead to the bond of the dynasties to fracture once more, causing large-scale conflicts to break out on the surface of the planet. The Silent King and his Triarch began searching for a means of restoring order to prevent the collapse of their rule, and to seek a path to revenge. An answer was later revealed to their salvation, but its cost would be catastrophic. The answer came in the form of the terrifyingly powerful entities which they would later call the C'tan, or Star Gods. The C'tan were formed from the violent interweaving of matter and energy at the very beginning of time, even before the first planets had fully formed. They emerged as mysterious forms of pure energy, feeding on the immense solar energies of nearby stars until only darkness remained. It is unclear exactly how the Necrontyr came into contact with these ancient sentient beings, possibly through their deep space research into the oldest dying stars, where collections of energetic plasma remained. The Necrontyr now had discovered the weapon they could harness to destroy the Old Ones, and uncover their secrets to achieve immortality. They constructed necrodermis shells using their living metal technology, allowing the C'tan entities to inhabit the physical realm, using these new suits as bodies to contain their immense power. Following this, one of the newly formed C'tan, known as the Deceiver, had an audience with the Silent King, and spoke of war between the C'tan and Old Ones long before the existence of the Necrontyr. It was a war, he said, that the C'tan had lost. The Deceiver explained that the remnants of his kind dispersed throughout the galaxy as undetectable energy forms, waiting for a time to unite with allied forces to bring the fall of the Old Ones. The common enemy brought the dynasties of the Necrontyr together in alliance with the C'tan, who they now worshipped for their immense power. In return for their service, the Deceiver offered the Necrontyr the prize they had long been searching for, the gift of immortality. It is yet unknown how much of the Deceiver's words were truth, but unknowing of the nature of the C'tan, and driven by the desire of everlasting life, the Silent King accepted the proposition. It was soon revealed that the C'tan were not the salvation the Necrontyr was hoping for. As they prepared to begin their renewed war against the Old Ones, armed with the power of the C'tan and an array of new technology, the C'tan offered them another path to immortality the Necrontyr had always craved. This, however, was not the eternal life of the Old Ones, but an entirely different form, consisting of the same living metal shells of necrodermis they had constructed for their star gods. The C'tan proposed to replace the diseased flesh of the Necrontyr with living metal bodies, so that they could be freed from their weaknesses and live forever. In his ambition to be free from death and for vengeance and victory over the Old Ones, Zarek agreed, and so the great process of biotransference began. Each Necrontyr was then stripped of flesh and soul, replaced by a cold, shimmering metal shell, as the C'tan feasted on their former life energies as they made the transfers, leaving behind only the ghostly echoes of the Necrontyr's former self. Only a few strong-willed leaders within the Necrontyr, including the Silent King, retained some form of self-awareness, as they had been purged of their former soul. It was only when Zarek himself emerged from the biotransference process he realised the depth of his terrible mistake and the true price of physical immortality. He looked upon what had become of his people and saw only hollow, soulless husks, with only their burning hatred towards the living remaining. The Necrontyr were no more, and the soulless, undying Necrons had been reborn in their place. It soon became clear that the Necrons were now slaves to the powerful C'tan. The Necrontyr's curse of weakened flesh and short life had been replaced by the curse of eternal servitude to their star gods. This tragic ending of the Necrontyr and birth of the Necrons yielded a strong union between their entire race and drastically increased the strength of their army. Renewed by the consumption of the life energies of an entire species, and with the legions of Necrons marching in their wake, the C'tan were now powerful beyond imagining. The Old Ones, who were yet unaware of the recent demise of the Necrontyr, were now fatally unprepared for one of the greatest wars to ever befall the galaxy. This war would be known in ancient history as the War in Heaven. The War in Heaven was on a galactic scale and was much different to the first war with the Old Ones. The Necrons now possessed more advanced weaponry wielded by undying living metal warriors. The Old Ones' mastery over the warp was now countered by the C'tan's raw power and supremacy over the physical realm. The C'tan seemed to be unstoppable as they unleashed forces beyond comprehension on the ancient enemies of the Necrons. The creations and even entire star systems of the Old Ones were consumed by the reality-warping powers of the star gods. As the Necron legions spread throughout the galaxy, the Old Ones began to suffer great losses in the interstellar battles that followed, and were forced to retreat to their former safe haven of the Webway. Such was the fury and power of the C'tan and Necrons combined. Even the previously inaccessible reaches of space were now breached, allowing the Necrons to turn the Old Ones' greatest weapon against them. Harnessing the power of the Webway and warp gates, the Necrons rapidly accelerated the demise of the once mighty race of the Old Ones. The Old Ones would now become desperate in the face of annihilation. They retreated further into the far reaches of the galaxy to focus their deep knowledge and scientific skills in an attempt to genetically engineer a new race of beings with the capability of channeling psychic powers strong enough to defend against the might of the C'tan. As time passed while the Necrons and C'tan continued to extinguish life across the galaxy, one of the creations showed great promise with their abilities to channel the energies of the warp. This new intelligent race would be known as the Aeldari. The Old Ones nurtured many other races, including the Rashan, the Jakero, the Knib and the Krork, although little is known of their fate. It is still unknown if they played any role in the rise of humanity on Terra. The Old Ones would continue to train the young Aeldari to master their psychic powers, frequently leaving and returning to their planet to ensure that they would be fully prepared for the wars to come. As the War in Heaven raged on, the number of the Old Ones began to dwindle, and it was now time for their psychically empowered younger race to advance into the galaxy to combat the immense threat posed by the Necrons and the C'tan. The advanced psychic abilities of the Aeldari proved highly effective against the soulless physical forms of the Necrons, who were unable to contain the relentless advance of the combined forces of the Aeldari and the Old Ones. At this point in time, there was only a few C'tan left in existence, not enough to contain the young Aeldari advance upon the galaxy. As the power of the warp was tapped into on an immense scale by the Aeldari, something happened which would trigger an unforeseen, cataclysmic event, throwing the reactive energies of the Immaterium into utter dismay. The fabric of reality itself began to tear open, unleashing terrifying ancient entities into the material realm that had long existed within the warp. The most destructive of these entities were the Enslavers, who were able to dominate the minds of the Aeldari to tear open more and more portals for the warp entities to pass through. With the gates between the realms now open, the denizens of the warp began spewing out from the Immaterium and into the material universe. The Old Ones now had to contend with not only the Necrons, but also the vast invasion of predatory manifestations from the realm of chaos, mistakenly unleashed by the very creations that were intended to be their salvation. This was the final disaster which scattered the last of the Old Ones and broke their power over the galaxy once and for all. It is still unknown if they were completely destroyed, as it is entirely possible that some may have managed to flee the galaxy to seek a new haven elsewhere. In either case, their great secrets of immortality and knowledge of the universe would be forever lost to the galaxy. The remaining Necron and C'tan survivors of the War in Heaven had finally achieved their goal of the demise of their hated enemy, the Old Ones. With their main enemy vanquished, the Silent King and his Necrons began to formulate plans to revolt against their enslavers, the C'tan. The Necrons were able to create weapons using their expanded knowledge, which focused immensely powerful energies with such strength and force that even the star gods could not withstand. The C'tan were sundered into thousands of fragmented shards by this advanced weaponry, scattering them throughout the galaxy. With the C'tan overlords now removed, the Necrons were free and able to forge their own destiny. However, the Silent King saw that the new race of Aeldari left behind by the Old Ones had begun reaching great strength and power as they further mastered their ability to control the warp. The resources of the Necrons had been greatly eroded as a consequence of the millennia of war and rebellion against the C'tan. They would not be able to oppose the Aeldari in their current state. Zarek envisioned that the Aeldari would take the mantle from the Old Ones and regain control over the galaxy. But as with all living beings made of flesh, their time would eventually pass. Knowing this, the Silent King commanded his Necrons to withdraw into the tombs of their stasis crypts. There they would remain dormant, sealed away in giant vaults for over 60 million years, while waiting for the opportune time to emerge and restore their former glory. Acknowledging his failure to his people, the Silent King destroyed the command protocols used to control them. He did not join his fellow Necrons in their long slumber, and instead set into the empty void of space to find whatever measure of solace he could after dooming his once mighty race. Meanwhile, as aeons pass with the Necrons lying dormant, the lesser races of the galaxy continued to develop and grow in size and strength, including the Imperium of mankind. After a period of 60 million years had passed, the Necrons began to rise from their dusty stasis tombs, only to find themselves surrounded by frail, living beings. Their ancient technology, which they had created aeons ago, was far in advance of any equivalent of the 41st millennium, and they now seek to restore their once mighty empire that spanned across the stars. The undying, unstoppable Necron legions are rising, and in the cold void of space, the stars whisper of their king's return.